Hey, Elena, how is everything going today? You look a bit stressed. Are you okay?
Oh, hi, James. I am fine. Just a bit busy. I am actually working on a new gardening project in the backyard.
Wait, stop. I caught you. You used the A word incorrectly.
The A word? What do you mean?
You said you are actually working on your garden, but you meant you are doing it currently or at the moment, right? I finally corrected the teacher.
You are absolutely right. I fell into that trap. In so many other languages, the word that sounds like actually means now. But in English, it is used to show a contrast or a surprise. I should have said currently.
I feel so proud of myself. Usually, my wife is the one correcting me when I mess up the grocery list. It's nice to be the smart one for a minute.
Enjoy it while it lasts. But you're right to point it out. Actually is a total powerhouse word. It's a chameleon. We use it to manage social situations, to be polite, and to change the direction of a conversation. It makes you sound so much more natural.
I really want to figure out how to use it like a pro. I want to sound like a native speaker, not a dictionary. How about you, listener? Do you ever find yourself using actually when you mean now?
It is such a common mistake, even for people who have been studying for years. Today, we are going to look into how to use it properly. We'll start with the B1 basics, move into the B2 nuances, and then share some cool idioms.
I am excited to get used to using it the right way. And hey, if you want to catch up with all our latest tips, don't forget to subscribe to the show. It really helps us keep the coffee brewing here at the chat.
Exactly. You don't want to run into an embarrassing situation where you say something you don't mean. Let's start with the most basic way we use actually to correct a fact.
I'm all ears. My dog is even tilting his head like he's listening too.
Exactly. So the first and most common way we use actually is a fact checker. It's like a bridge between what we expect to happen and what is really happening. It's the expectation versus reality word.
I see. So it's like when I think I have left my keys on the kitchen counter, but actually they are in the refrigerator next to the milk. That happens more than I want to admit.
That is a perfect example. It's a surprise, right? You can use it to point out a small mistake or a change in plans. For instance, people often think my husband is very quiet because he loves birdwatching, but actually, he can talk for hours about train schedules if you let him.
I feel you. My neighbor thought my dog was a tiny puppy because he jumps around so much. I had to tell him, actually, he is a fully grown dog. He just really loves people.
It really helps to clear up those little misunderstandings. And the best part is that it makes you sound polite. If you just say, no, you are wrong, it sounds a bit aggressive. But if you say, actually, it's like this, it sounds much softer.
That is a great tip. I don't want to sound like I am arguing with everyone. I used it yesterday at work. I thought the meeting was at 2 p.m., but I checked my calendar and realized it was at 3. I told my boss, I thought we were meeting now, but actually it's in an hour.
See, you are already using it like a pro. It shows that you have new information that changes the situation. How about you, listener? Have you ever had a moment where you thought one thing was true, but the reality was totally different? Maybe you thought English grammar was impossible, but actually, it's just a bit of a puzzle.
I hope they feel that way. I remember when I tried to show up for a surprise party for my cousin. I was so excited, but I ended up at the wrong house. I had to call my wife and say, actually, I am standing in a stranger's driveway right now.
Oh no, James, that is a classic. But that's exactly it. You are correcting the fact of where you are. It's very useful for correcting information about yourself, too. Like if someone offers you a snack you don't like.
Right, if someone gives me a raisin cookie, I can say, actually, I'm more of a chocolate chip person. It's way nicer than just saying I hate raisins.
Precisely. It handles the social bump of the correction. It's less about being right and more about being accurate.
That is so true. It's like a social lubricant. But wait, Elena, I've noticed people use it to soften the blow when they disagree or change their mind. Is that the more advanced way to use it?
Exactly. At a B2 level, we start to use actually as a social softener. It's like a little warning sign that you are about to say something different from what the other person expects. It helps you bring up a different opinion without sounding like you are starting an argument.
I think I do that when my wife asks if I like the new pillows she bought. I might say, actually, I think the old ones were a bit softer. It sounds much better than just saying, I hate these pillows.
Exactly. And here's a pro tip. Keep in mind that where you put the word in the sentence changes the feeling. If you start with actually, you are being quite direct and correcting a point. But if you put it at the end, it sounds more like an afterthought or a little surprise.
Wait, let me try. So if I say, the movie was good, actually, it sounds like I didn't expect to enjoy it.
Spot on. It adds a touch of surprise. My husband does this all the time. He will say, I am not really hungry. Actually, maybe I will have a slice of that pizza. It shows he is changing his mind in the moment.
I do that at the coffee shop. I tell the barista I just want a plain tea. Then I see the blueberry muffins and say, actually, I'll take one of those too. I just can't hold back when I see fresh baking.
We have all been there, James. How about you, listener? Do you ever find yourself changing your mind at the last second? Do you use actually at the end of your sentences to show that you are a little surprised by your own choice?
It really is a great way to sound more natural. I used to put off using words like this because they felt like extra words that I didn't really need, but they really help you come across as more fluent and relaxed, don't they?
They really do. It is all about the music of the conversation. Using it at the end makes you sound like a real person who is thinking as they speak, not a robot reading from a script.
I like that. I definitely don't want to sound like a robot. I want to sound like a guy who just realized he forgot to buy milk. Actually, I need to go over my grocery list one more time after we finish here.
You definitely should. Speaking of lists and being accurate, there is a phrase that is like actually, but a bit more sophisticated. It is as a matter of fact.
Oh, that sounds like something a lawyer would say. As a matter of fact, Your Honor, my dog did not eat the evidence.
Haha, maybe, but we use it in normal life too. It is great when you want to back up a statement with more evidence or a surprising detail. It's like saying, and here's even more proof.
I see. So if my neighbor asks if I know a lot about gardening, I could say, yes, as a matter of fact, I helped my wife plant 50 tulips last weekend.
Precisely. It makes the information stand out. It is very common in professional settings or when you want to sound very sure of yourself. It shows you really have the details ready.
I need to use that more often, especially when I'm talking to my cousin who thinks he is an expert at everything. I will just bring up some random facts and start with, as a matter of fact.
Just do not overdo it, or you might sound a bit like you are showing off. Now, there is another one I love for storytelling. Believe it or not. This one is perfect for when you have a story that sounds like it might be fake, but it is 100% true.
Oh, I have plenty of those. Like the time my dog was scared of a balloon. Believe it or not, he wouldn't come into the living room for 2 days because there was a single yellow balloon floating near the ceiling. He just stared at it from the hallway.
Exactly. It prepares the listener for a shock. I have one too. Believe it or not, my husband actually enjoys spending his weekends looking at old train timetables. He finds it very relaxing.
Wow, that is unique. I guess we all have our things. How about you, listener? Is there something about your life that people find hard to believe? Maybe you have climbed a mountain or you speak 5 languages? Believe it or not,
It really helps you get across the wow factor of your story. It's much more engaging than just stating a fact. It's like a little hook to catch the listener's attention.
I feel like I'm really starting to keep up with these expressions. They make the conversation feel more alive. Sometimes I worry my English will fall through when I'm under pressure, but these little phrases really help me stay on track.
They are like safety nets for your fluency. They give you a second to think while still sounding very natural. They help the conversation flow without those awkward silences we all dread.
I think it's time to turn the tables, Elena. I've been the one learning all day, so I want to give you a little quiz. I have 3 scenarios for you. Are you ready?
Oh, a surprise test. I hope I can keep up. Go ahead, James. What's the first one?
Okay, scenario 1. Imagine someone thinks a friend of yours is coming to dinner, but they aren't. How do you use actually to make that a polite correction instead of a blunt no?
That is a good one. I would probably say, I know we were planning on it, but actually he is not coming tonight because he's feeling a bit under the weather. It sounds much softer, right?
Perfect. It sounds like a gentle update. Okay, scenario 2. I invite you for a 3rd cup of coffee, but you are already shaking from too much caffeine. How do you refuse using our star word?
That happens more often than it should. I would say, I would love to, but actually, I have had enough coffee for one day. Maybe some water instead?
I feel you. My wife tells me that all the time when I reach for the coffee pot at 8 p.m. Now, last one. Tell me a surprising preference. Everyone thinks you love coffee, but tell us the truth using actually.
Actually, I prefer a nice cup of herbal tea over coffee most of the time, especially in the afternoon. It is much more relaxing.
You passed with flying colors, 100%. How about you, listener? How would you answer those? Can you think of a surprising preference you have? Maybe you look like a cat person, but actually you love big dogs.
I love hearing those little surprises about people. Since we are in the teaching mood, let's look at some of the words we have used today in our vocabulary corner. To figure out. To figure out. This means to finally understand something or find a solution to a problem after thinking about it for a while.
It took me ages to figure out how to put together that new bookshelf my wife bought, but I finally did it.
I am still trying to figure out why my cat refuses to eat the expensive food I bought her. Next we have to run into. To run into. This is when you meet someone by chance without planning it.
I was at the park yesterday, and I happened to run into my neighbor while he was washing his car.
It is always a nice surprise when I run into an old friend at the grocery store. Next is to clear up. To clear up. We use this when we want to explain something so it is no longer confusing or misunderstood.
I had to call the bank to clear up a small mistake they made with my monthly statement.
I hope this episode helps to clear up any confusion about using the word actually. Our next one is to hold back. To hold back. This means to stop yourself from doing or saying something, even if you really want to.
I had to hold back from laughing when my dog accidentally barked at his own reflection in the mirror.
I always have to hold back from eating the entire bag of chips as soon as I open it. And the last one for today, to come across. To come across. This is the impression or the feeling you give to other people.
I was worried I would come across as nervous during my presentation, but my boss said I looked very confident.
Sometimes my husband can come across as a bit shy, but once you get to know him, he is actually very talkative. Before we wrap up today's episode, I have a special challenge for you, our listeners. We call it the Actually Challenge.
I love a good challenge, as long as it doesn't involve me cleaning out my junk drawer. My wife says it's a total disaster area, but I call it organized chaos.
No cleaning required. The challenge is simple. At some point today, find one opportunity to use the word actually to correct a small detail in a conversation. It doesn't have to be a big correction. Maybe a colleague thinks you started at the company in 2020, and you say, actually, I joined in 2021.
That is a great way to get used to the word. It makes the correction feel so much smoother. I'm going to try it today at the bakery. If they think I want my usual bread, I'll say, actually, I'm going to try the sourdough today.
Perfect. It is all about making it a habit. How about you, listener? Can you find a moment today to bring up a small fact or a change in plans using our star word? Give it a try. It's the best way to make the lesson stick.
I totally agree. And hey, if you want to look into more of our bite-sized English tips, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps us keep on making these episodes for you. We love having you in our coffee shop corner.
It really does help. We want to make sure you never miss a chance to catch up on the latest nuances of natural English. Small words like actually really do make a big difference in how confident you feel.
Exactly. Well, I should probably head out. I told my wife I'd be home 10 minutes ago. Actually, I just checked my watch and it was 20 minutes ago. I am definitely in trouble.
Better late than never. Good luck with that, James. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us today.
Bye, everyone. Happy practicing, and we'll chat again soon.
Goodbye.